My older brother's laugh still echoes in my head years later. It happened the day of the will reading. I could still hear him gloating across the mahogany conference table like he'd just won the lottery. "You got the rotten shack, Leo," he said with a smug grin that turned my stomach. "I got the business, the building, the clients, Dad's entire empire. You? You got a termite buffet." Our cousins shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The attorney cleared his throat. But Victor, he didn't care. He never had. What Victor didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that the rotting old house held Dad's real secret, one that would change everything. And by the time Victor found out, it was already far too late. Our dad, Frank Moreno, died suddenly of a heart attack. Tuesday morning, March 8th. He was 69. I still remember how cold the hospital tile felt under my shoes as I signed the paperwork. It didn't feel real. Maybe because in my head, Dad had always seemed unbreakable. The funeral was held at St. Elmo Presbyterian in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the same church where he'd married our mom 38 years ago. She'd passed 6 years earlier. And after that, Dad had never been the same. I sat in the front pew alone. The casket was closed, draped in a flag. He was a Navy vet, decorated, respected, quiet. Victor showed up late, in a navy blue Brioni suit, Ray-Bans still on his collar, like he was heading to a tech conference. He didn't cry. He didn't look at Dad's casket. He just made his rounds, shaking hands, whispering to people like they were investors. I hated how good he was at pretending. Victor had always been the golden child, captain of the football team, homecoming king, Dad's right-hand man at Moreno Design Printworks, which he'd built from a garage to a $5 million commercial giant. Me? I was the kid who fixed lawnmowers for fun. I kept to myself, stayed in the basement workshop, built things with my hands. When Dad asked Victor about quarterly profits, he'd turn to me and say, "How's that birdhouse coming along, champ?" At some point, I stopped expecting him to be proud. 3 days after the funeral, we met at the law office for the will. Victor leaned back in his chair, already half smirking. "To my eldest son, Victor Moreno, I leave Moreno Design Printworks, its assets, inventory, and client base," the attorney read. "Valued at $4.8 million. Victor cracked his knuckles. No surprise there. "And to my younger son, Leonardo Moreno, I leave the residence at 910 Forest Hollow Drive." Victor burst into laughter. "The dump? Seriously?" He looked around. "Guess we know who Dad really trusted." I didn't respond. Just signed the paperwork while my ears burned. But even then, I felt something strange in my gut, like Dad had left something unfinished. I drove to Forest Hollow that night. The house hadn't changed much since I was a kid. Faded teal shutters, brick cracking near the chimney, overgrown lawn. But standing on the porch, I could almost hear Dad's voice, teaching me how to replace a hinge, how to sandwich grain properly, how to take my time. "Measure twice, cut once," he'd say. Inside, the house was frozen in time. His slippers by the door, a half-finished Sudoku on the armrest, the smell of cedar and coffee. I walked upstairs. His bedroom was immaculate, still made with military corners. I opened the closet to find a tangle of old sweaters, toolboxes, and an antique dresser wedged against the far wall. I moved it to clean underneath. Thunk! A hollow thud. I froze. Tapped the wall. Hollow on one side, solid on the other. My fingers trembled as I grabbed a flathead screwdriver and pried the molding loose. Behind it was a keypad safe embedded into the drywall. One code came to mind. Mom's birthday. 040762. Click. Inside was a velvet pouch, a key marked Heritage Bank, Vault 118, and a thick envelope labeled Leo for when I'm gone. The letter shook in my hands. "Leo, if you're reading this, you did exactly what I hoped. You looked deeper. I didn't give you the house because it was worthless. I gave it to you because you'd understand it wasn't. Victor, he always wanted to be king, but kings fall. I needed to know who would rebuild from the ashes." The letter detailed a separate trust, completely hidden from the family and Victor. Stocks, private investments, and something called Moreno Legacy Holdings LLC, a shell company tied to a string of patents and rental properties in Georgia and Alabama. "Don't tell your brother. If he knew, he'd ruin it out of ego. This isn't just an inheritance. It's a mission. Make something of it. Quietly. Precisely. And when the time is right, let the truth bury him. The next morning, I took the key to Heritage Bank. Box 118 was packed. Legal documents, rental deeds, $200,000 in municipal bonds, and a thumb drive. The drive held blueprints, designs, contracts under Moreno Legacy Holdings with defense firms and universities, intellectual property worth millions. Dad had hidden a secret empire, and it was all under my name. Victor thought he won. He hadn't even entered the game. Belle, quick question for you. Have you ever had to keep a family secret that changed everything? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life revenge stories. I didn't touch the money. Not at first. Instead, I watched. I waited. I studied Victor the same way he used to study his reflection in a mirror. Within weeks of taking over Moreno Design Printworks, he started bragging on LinkedIn about streamlining operations and eliminating redundancies. Corporate speak for firing Dad's oldest employees, the very ones who'd helped build the company from the ground up. 3 senior staff gone in one afternoon. I knew 2 of them. I used to sweep sawdust off their boots when I was 10. They were loyal, until Victor treated them like trash. One of them, Julio Alvarez, messaged me quietly a few days later. "Your brother doesn't know what the hell he's doing, Leo," he wrote. "He thinks charisma is a business plan." I didn't reply, but I made a mental note. Victor threw a relaunch party for the business that summer. Rented out a rooftop bar in downtown Chattanooga, catered sushi and champagne. I saw pictures online. Victor shaking hands with a local congressman. A branded hashtag. #New Moreno. Meanwhile, I was on the roof of the Forest Hollow house, replacing shingles. I got a text from him the next morning. "You should have come last night. Big things happening. Anyway, how's the haunted shack?" I didn't respond. But something else happened that week. Something unexpected. Julio showed up at my house. He looked tired but determined. Held out a flash drive. "I backed up all the old client contracts before I left," he said. "Victor's been modifying terms, screwing people. You should see this." I let him in. We sat at my father's old dining table, scrolling through files. Emails. Revised contracts. Non competes. Victor wasn't just running the company into the ground. He was altering documents, voiding long-term contracts in favor of short-term cash grabs. Julio leaned back. If the IRS saw this, I didn't say anything. Just closed the laptop. But in that moment, the plan began forming. I started building a case. Not out of spite, out of precision. Every email, every red flag. I organized it all in a private folder labeled VM Fireproof. Meanwhile, I used some of my inheritance to quietly purchase 2 commercial properties Victor had no clue were connected to the print business. He'd sold them off in a rush to raise capital for some flashy new equipment. He thought he was upgrading. He didn't know the land underneath them was worth more than the company itself. He didn't know I was the one who bought them back. Through shell companies, of course. I let the news leak to the right people. Quietly. A whisper here. A rumor there. By fall, the industry buzz was getting louder. What's going on at Moreno? Victor's in over his head. Old man Moreno must be rolling in his grave. I smiled every time I heard it. Then came the audit. A former client filed a lawsuit. Said Victor changed the terms of a fulfillment contract without disclosure. The IRS got involved. A former accountant testified. Julio, too. Victor's empire started bleeding in public. And then, just when it couldn't get worse, his wife left him. That's right, Miriam, the perfectly polished marketing executive. She filed for divorce 2 weeks after the audit became public. Turns out she'd invested her own inheritance into Victor's failing expansion. She walked out and took their lake house with her. Victor called me that night. I let go to voicemail. He started leaving messages. "Lau, I know you're watching all this. I need a loan. Short term. I know you were always close with Dad. He would want you to help me. You can't just let me fall like this. We're brothers." I didn't delete the voicemails. I archived them, along with the emails, the contracts, the lies. Then I sent one anonymous tip to a journalist at the Chattanooga Times Free Press. The story ran the next week. Son of late local business legend under investigation for fraud, nepotism. Victor's face was on the front page. Below it, a photo of the original Moreno Design Printworks building. What Victor didn't know was that I owned it now. The article changed everything. Clients pulled out. Sponsors ghosted. Even the bank that financed Victor's equipment loan froze the account. And still, he didn't know it was me. But others started to suspect. 2 days after the article dropped, I got a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, calm and clear. Mr. Moreno? I'm calling from Charterwood Capital. We understand you're the principal investor behind Forest Ridge Holdings. My stomach clenched. That was one of my shell companies. Yes, I said slowly. We'd like to talk to you about acquiring what's left of Moreno Design Printworks. Discreetly. That night, I drove out to the industrial park. The building looked smaller now. Tired. The same building Dad poured his soul into, now gutted by Victor's ambition. There were rumors that Victor had tried to sell it off himself, but nobody wanted to touch it with an audit still pending. Except me. Through Forest Ridge Holdings, I made an offer to the creditors. Not just on the building, on everything. Equipment, branding, domain, the entire carcass of Victor's empire. The deal went through 3 weeks later. Legal, clean, bulletproof. On paper, Victor's business was sold to a private investment group. But the name on the top of the purchase order? Leo F. Moreno. Victor didn't find out until it was too late. He showed up at the old office to grab a few personal items. The receptionist, a temp I'd hired, handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a formal notice. Effective immediately, ownership and operational control of Moreno Design Printworks has been transferred to Forest Ridge Holdings, owned solely by Leonardo F. Moreno. There was also a handwritten note. I'd written it the night before. Victor, you always said the business should stay in the family. I agree. Leo, I heard he smashed a mug against the wall. He tried calling. Left voicemails full of venom and desperation. You think you're clever? You think this is funny? You won't survive a quarter in this industry. You were always just a background extra in my story. But he was wrong, because I wasn't just planning to take back the business. I was planning to rebuild it. Not the flashy way. Not with parties and hashtags, but the right way. I rehired Julio and the others Victor fired. We held quiet meetings in the basement of the house on Forest Hollow. Brought back old clients. Fixed old contracts. I even reopened the small fulfillment center Dad used to run himself. And the strangest part? The more I rebuilt, the more I began to understand why Dad did it this way. He didn't just hide an inheritance. He built a test, and I was passing it. But Victor wasn't done yet. 2 months after I took control, I came home one night to find the front gate to my property wide open. The porch light was off, and someone had broken into the workshop. Nothing was stolen, but one thing was missing. Dad's Navy medals. The ones he kept in the shadow box on the workbench. I found a box cracked open, glass shattered on the floor, and a note taped to the wall. You'll never be him. My blood went cold. That was the night everything shifted. This wasn't just about business anymore. Victor had made it personal, and he was about to learn that when you strip away the spotlight, the cameras, and the suits, all that's left is character. And mine was forged in fire. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I drove. No destination, just movement. My knuckles white on the steering wheel as the yellow streetlights of Chattanooga blurred past. Victor had crossed the line. Dad's medals weren't just shiny reminders of a past war. They were sacred. Symbols of sacrifice, service, and silence. And now they were gone, probably tossed in a gutter or pawned by a bitter man who couldn't stand losing. I pulled over a gas station off Route 153. My heart was pounding, my jaw locked. Then I remembered the cameras. 3 months ago, while renovating the house, I'd installed security cameras. Quiet ones. High resolution. Wired into a private server. Back home, I fast-forwarded through footage until I found it. 12:16 a.m. A figure in a hoodie. Tall. Confident stride. He bypassed the front door and went around to the side gate. Keypad entry. He knew the code. Of course he did. He'd helped install it when Dad first upgraded the locks 5 years ago. I watched him pry open the workshop door. He wasn't in a rush. He knew what he was looking for. And then, frame by frame, I saw it. Victor, standing beneath the overhead light, opening the metal box. His face contorted, Not with grief, but hate. He didn't even flinch when the glass cracked. He just ripped the metals out and left. I sent the footage to my attorney the next morning. Not to press charges yet, but to file it away. Evidence. Then I made a call. To Miriam, Victor's ex-wife. She didn't answer right away. I left a message. Miriam, this is Leo Moreno. I know we've never spoken one-on-one, but I have something you'll want to see, and I think we can help each other. She called back within the hour. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She wore sunglasses even though it was overcast and a scarf around her neck like she was trying to disappear. You said this is about Victor? She asked. I slid the tablet across the table. She watched the footage, said nothing for a full minute. Then she whispered, he hasn't just lost his business. He's lost control. I leaned in. I know he emptied your inheritance. I know you had a fight just to keep your name off the bankruptcy filings. Her eyes narrowed. What are you asking me? I want to finish this. Not out of revenge, out of necessity, before he does something worse. And you think I can help? I nodded. I think you know where the metals are. 2 days later, Miriam called. I found them, she said. He'd hidden them in the back of his closet. I have them now. My chest tightened. I want you to return them, I said. In person? She hesitated. Then, where and when? We set the meeting for the old Printworks building, now mine. Victor didn't know. He thought it was still held by Forest Ridge Holdings. I called it from a burner number. Victor Moreno? I said in a flat voice. Who's this? You have one opportunity to make something right. Be at 239 Crenshaw Avenue tomorrow at noon. Alone. I hung up before he could speak. The next day, I watched from the upper office window as Victor pulled into the lot. He looked rough, his expensive haircut grown out, his tailored coat hanging loose. He stepped inside, confused by the silence. Then he saw Miriam. She was standing in the middle of the floor, holding a shadow box. What is this? He spat. Some reunion show? She didn't speak, just handed it to him. He looked down. The metals were back in place. The glass repaired. The plaque shined. What do you want me to do? Apologize? He sneered. You think this fixes anything? That's when I walked out of the shadows. No, I said. This is just the beginning. Victor staggered back like he'd seen a ghost. You, he muttered. You own this place? I own everything you gave away. His face twisted. You set me up. No, you set yourself up. I just gave you the rope. He tried to laugh. You think you're better than me now? You think Dad would be proud of this? I stepped closer. No, I don't think. I know. Because I didn't take shortcuts. I didn't lie. And I didn't break into a dead man's workshop like a coward. For a moment, Victor looked like he might lunge. But then he saw Miriam recording everything on her phone. And he crumbled. He dropped the shadow box at my feet. And walked out. No threats. No insults. Just silence. But something told me he wasn't finished. 3 days passed. No calls. No messages. No sign of Victor. I should have felt relieved. But peace isn't always quiet. It can feel like the stillness right before a storm. Then, late Friday night, I got an email. No subject line. No sender name. Just one attachment. A scan of an old document. At first, I didn't recognize it. But then my stomach dropped. It was a handwritten ledger from Moreno Legacy Holdings, one of the shell companies Dad had hidden under my name. The document listed transfers, dates, property codes. It wasn't illegal, but it looked shady if you didn't understand the context. And in the wrong hands, it could ruin everything I'd built. Another email came seconds later. Ever heard of whistleblower protections? Leo? IRS tip line is anonymous. So is the SEC. You're not the only one who knows how to dig. He was bluffing. I hoped. I called Julio my right hand now. I think Victor's trying to trigger a federal audit, I told him. Julio was quiet a moment. Then, you want me to make a call? No, I said. We're not stooping. Not yet. But I started prepping. I gathered every receipt, every document, every contract. I paid a forensic accountant to audit me. And then I filed my own report, proactively. One step ahead, just like Dad taught me. Victor must have been furious. Because a week later, I got served with a lawsuit. He was suing me. Allegations of fraud, identity theft, misappropriation of intellectual property. I showed the papers to my attorney, Megan. She scanned them quickly. This won't stick, she said, but it'll hurt. He's doing it to drain you. To make you spend money, time, energy. Exactly what I feared. The game had changed. Victor wasn't trying to win anymore. He just wanted to make me lose. Meanwhile, the story spread. Local business pages ran headlines like, "Brothers at War. Moreno legacy turns bitter in court battle from inheritance to infighting. What went wrong at Moreno Printworks?" Old high school friends started reaching out. So did clients. Some offered support. Others wanted distance. The whispers returned. Maybe Leo isn't as clean as we thought. Maybe the quiet one had secrets too. That hurt more than I expected. But I didn't break. Instead, I dug deeper. I asked Megan to file a countersuit. Defamation. Harassment. Breach of fiduciary trust. And then I made another quiet call. To Jasper Neely, Dad's former business partner from the 80s. A name Victor had forgotten. Jasper owned rights to several patents Victor had tried to claim as his own during the business split. I flew to Atlanta to meet him. "I always liked your dad," Jasper said, sipping bitter coffee in a vinyl diner booth. "He said you were the one with sense." We talked for hours. By the end, Jasper signed over exclusive licensing rights to 3 critical patents. On one condition, I used them the right way. "Don't just bury your brother," Jasper said. "Bury the ego that made him." Armed with Jasper's patents, I launched a new division under Moreno Printworks, precision prototype manufacturing. Clean, efficient, high demand. It didn't just revive the business. It tripled its value in 4 months. Victor's lawsuit fell apart in court. His attorney quit mid-hearing when Victor accused him of conspiring with me. The judge dismissed the case with prejudice. Translation: Victor couldn't sue me again for the same lies. But I wasn't done. I had one final move left. The one Dad never used. The nuclear option. The last move wasn't about business. It wasn't about money. It was about legacy. Victor thought he was untouchable because he'd always lived in the spotlight. So I decided to take that spotlight and turn it on him. I hired a documentary filmmaker. Quietly. Not a Hollywood crew. Just a local woman named Daria who specialized in human interest stories. Real stories. She'd lost her brother to a scam once. She understood betrayal, family, and redemption. Over 6 months, we filmed interviews with former employees, old clients, even teachers who remembered Victor and me from high school. We told a full story. From Dad's humble beginnings as a Navy vet with a loan and a printing press, to how his sons took wildly different paths. One driven by ego, the other by effort. We showed the business rise, the funeral, the will, the hidden inheritance, the fall of Victor Moreno, and how, through it all, I had to decide, do I become like him, or do I become the man Dad believed I could be? We titled it The Quiet Brother. I didn't release it to theaters. I released it on YouTube, free, under my name, and I emailed Victor the link. I expected anger. Instead, I got silence. Then, 1 week later, I got a voicemail. Victor's voice was hoarse, beaten, like all the air had finally left him. I watched it. Every second. "You were right. I destroyed everything. And you rebuilt it. I used to laugh at you, man. But you're the only one who actually earned the Moreno name. I'm leaving Chattanooga. I won't bother you again." He hung up. I never heard from him again. The video went viral. Over 2 million views in a month. Thousands of comments poured in. People sharing their own family betrayals, their own painful sibling rivalries, their quiet victories. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. A year passed. The business thrived. I opened a second location in Knoxville. Julio became my COO. Miriam started consulting for a marketing team, quietly, professionally. The house on Forest Hollow was finally finished. Inside, I built a new display case for Dad's medals, under bulletproof glass. Not out of fear, out of respect. Then one morning, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, a small, weathered Polaroid. It was a photo of Victor, standing in front of a diner in Oregon. His hair was longer, his eyes tired, but there was a smile there, a real one. Taped to the back was a note. "I got a job washing dishes. Working my way up. It's quiet here. I think I'm finally learning." No signature, just a final, silent surrender. That's the thing about revenge. If you do it right, you don't just destroy someone's ego. You give them a mirror. And if they're lucky, they might finally see themselves. I didn't destroy Victor. I let his own choices do that. All I did was survive long enough to rise. Dad once told me, character isn't built in moments of glory. It's built when no one's watching. Well, Dad, they're watching now, and I hope I made you proud.